Hi, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today. We have a very interesting program. I hope you're all excited. I can see from the people who are joining us are very excited about this webinar. I am Nthabiseng Kotsokoane. I'm the chairperson of the AfLIA Academic and Special section. I'm very pleased to tell you that we have a very good attendance and very good registration for this panel, for this webinar. I just want to give you ground rules for how we do it. You'll all be muted. Your speakers will be muted. If you want to ask a question, please type on the chat. We will see the questions, and then we have a question and answer button. Please put your questions there. As we go along, if we feel that we have answers to your questions, some of the panelists will continue answering your questions. I'm very pleased that you've joined us. At the end of the session, I'll come back and tell you what we're going to do with the slides. We will share them. In fact, let me tell you now, we're going to share the slides later so that you don't ask during the presentation. We'll share the slides, we'll share the videos, and so you will have access to all the recording that has been done today. We're going to have about 2 hours of entertaining and informative session. And I'm going to let our speakers introduce themselves, because sometimes to say people's names, you end up not pronouncing them correctly. So I'm also looking forward to learning a lot from each one of us. And what we have discussed is that at the end of the session, if there are some apps or some software that you think would be useful for other people or other academic librarians or other librarians, and you feel like you want to share, just type it in the chat section, and then we will note them down, and then it will be nice for all of us to discuss them offline, of course. And we're gonna share the okay, can everybody see the slides that are being shared now? Okay, and I am going to hand over to our speakers. The last thing I want to say to you guys is, please, I beg you, be active members of AfLIA, because we need members. As I always say, the people that have heard me say this before, AfLIA can't survive without your membership. AfLIA can't survive on its own. Volunteer, get yourself into sections. We also I have to take some time to announce the conference. We're having an exciting conference that's gonna happen in Nairobi in May. Please, if you haven't joined, please register. We hope to see you there. We will have a very active conference, and then the public librarians will have their section, the special librarians will have their section also with the academic librarians. I would like to see you all there, finance obviously permitting. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm going to hand over to our speakers now.
So thank you very much for having me. My name is Mehdi Oulmakki. I am from Morocco. Could people just confirm that they can hear me okay? I'm watching the chat right now. Can you all hear me? Yes, thank you. Okay, so I am from Morocco, and I am currently teaching computer science at the African Leadership University in Rwanda. So if we have anyone watching from Rwanda and you would like to visit us in Kigali, you are most welcome. And the reason why I accepted the invitation to do this is because I am very passionate about helping bridge the gap around technological awareness in education, especially in an African context and in fields and areas that may not necessarily have historically leveraged what we can do with technology in this day and age. So I've done a little bit of research, and myself and my colleague Ruchi will present tomorrow as well with more applications we found. But I'm also here to learn. I only know very little about the work that you all have to do. So I'm hoping that this is of use. Please let me know through the chat if we should move faster or slower through any particular content. But without further ado, let me show you the agenda, what I'll try to achieve today, okay? So we'll go through this. We are going through introductions right now. I'll want to spend most of my time on just finding information and research. And especially when interacting with your patrons, making sure that they use the most basic tools available, the ones that are available to all of us, regardless of the size of our libraries, whether or not we were able to afford the fancy databases or not. So I want to spend some time on two very, very important tools for just initial research. I want to then spend some time on what I found to be a very interesting, very cheap way for information management, library management. I found an interesting tool for that I would like to share with you all. I want to talk a little bit about e-readers, applications that allow your users to read and consume the material. And then, as I often do in this kind of talks, I'll try to bring you a little bit to my field and introduce a tool at the very end that will let you, I promise, with as little headache as possible, become a very basic programmer and kind of build your own tools and applications that will hopefully solve the problems that are very specific to the challenges you face, okay? And ideally, I would like to spend as much time on questions at the end, so please keep them coming as they pop up. Cool, so let us all begin. And I'm going to actually start with asking you a question. Where do the patrons of your libraries begin? If they have a question, if they want to learn about something new, where do we think they're going to start? And I'm just watching the chat. Yeah, Google is probably your best bet. And I want to spend some time talking about Google. I think we've all seen it, we all know it, but there are a lot of hidden things and important things here. So, for example, if I just go to Google and type library science, you're going to get a big host of information, but none of them are going to be very majorly academic in nature. You will learn something, but it is probably not of the level of depth that we ultimately should get to. And the resource that I would like to share with everyone is a spin-off of Google called Google Scholar. Yes, David got that exactly right. So Google Scholar is very powerful, and I want to share some information about it, hopefully to people who have not seen it before, as well as show some potential. And just to echo back to my wonderful host at the beginning, in my research, I have found a lot of potential. Well, there was a lot of frustration. There were a lot of tools that are only available in some parts of the US or some parts of other corners of the world that we can't really use here. But all of those tools we were able to leverage only came to be because libraries came together and demanded for them. So I think there is a lot of potential in your organization, in your group, and I will share a few opportunities as we go through. So here, if you research library science, you are going to get results that are much more academic in nature, right? So here you will be looking for, you will be finding books, you'll be finding patents, you'll be finding papers, etc., etc. So first example here, we see, so one first common tip, one advice I'll give to people who use it is to learn how to use the advanced search functionality. So here we find some things that are relevant to library science. This book is on a library science text series. There is a dictionary for library information science that probably houses a lot of information relevant to this. But something like this is probably not relevant at all. There's the elements of software science. What Google does, if you just type something like this, is that it is looking for anything that contains these words. But you can refine it a lot more by just adding quotes. And here you're saying, I want literally the sentence library science. I want these words to be coming in unison, not just things that include both. So now if we search, we are still going to see similar results, but now everything is really going to be about library science. As you see the results, there are a few different things to consider. You can get a sense of how many people have cited a particular source, so it can give you a sense of the credibility of various things you find. It can give you a sense of how many versions, how many publications in case of a book there are. For students and people working on kind of formal work, you can automatically generate citations. So this will create citations for you that you can pretty quickly and easily share using any kind of tool you use to keep track of references and citations. So hopefully these are things that are familiar to many here. One thing that I've discovered as well that is quite good is that within Google Scholar, you can save articles that are relevant. So maybe this book will be something that I value later on, and you can keep track of those over time using this My Library link. So this will keep track of everything you've starred or saved. But most importantly, you can label them. So you can create within Google Scholar itself a set of labels. So maybe this will be for library science research. And you can create basically live bibliographies. So I've created the label. I can now apply it here. So you just select and then apply the label. And now these particular resources will be stored there. You can also, at any point, if you have a collection of these, you can export them. So this will link to any to BibTeX and Node-REFMan, or you can generate a CSV, which basically just means that it will be opened on some spreadsheet software. And this will create, this allows you to just generate a proper bibliography based on past research you've done. So I found this to be very useful. Let me go back to my search results. Now, one other thing to watch out for is that, sorry, it's just gonna take me a few clicks here, is that you don't always get access to content. So by doing this, you might find that Google Scholars will allow you to download a PDF of the document. If it is something that is stored in Google Books, you may be able to read the book, or at least some extracts from the book directly. But this very often will just end up sending you to some database where you get information about the publication, but you don't necessarily get access to the full text. Now, if you are currently using some of the major library databases, again, you guys are probably a lot more knowledgeable about this than I am, but things like EBSCOhost, etc. You should reach out to them, because one of the very powerful things you can provide for your students is that, so we, for example, use EBSCO, but we have not set this up. But what I could potentially do once we set up that arrangement is that I can just come here and say, find it at African Leadership University. And because EBSCO, so this won't work now, but because EBSCO is something that Google Scholar watches and we are using it, once we let them know that we want to use this feature, they can make it possible for our students to use Google Scholars to find resources that are available in our specific library, in our specific database. So it would look something like this. I think I had an example saved. So this is an example from Stanford, and this is just from the documentation of Google Scholar, and I'll share that with you. I'll share that with you in the slides. The slides will be shared as well at the end. But this is just an example, but what you will get, what your students would in the Google Scholar. Oh, hello? Some people are saying that the audio is off. Yeah, I had stopped. There was a little issue. Sorry. Hello? I think I should be fine now. For the host of the call, if you could allow me to mute and unmute myself, that would be very helpful. What happened was that I muted myself for a moment, but I can't undo it. So if you just give me that ability, I think that will make the rest pretty smooth. Thank you. Okay, so yeah, so this is from the Google Scholars documentation. This is, I think, something that can be very beneficial to anyone who uses things like Ex Libris or EBSCO. Contact them. You'll have to involve your tech team, your IT team, to set this up. But once you have that, you will be able to connect Google Scholar results to your own library. Even more so than this, and this is the one aspect that I found very, very interesting, is that you can also put your book catalogs on Google Scholars, make sure that they're accessible. And that will allow people to, again, try and loan it, see if it's available or not at your specific libraries. Now, this requires a lot more organization. As I mentioned, they want to partner with union catalogs. So you're probably familiar with the concept. This is just kind of a consortium of libraries putting their respective catalogs, making it accessible for other people. As far as I could find in my research, the only African ones there are, I think, 2 catalogs in South Africa. So South Africa is taking the lead on this one, but I think there's an opportunity here with your organization to make sure that this data is available and that our patrons, our users can, when searching, just get this kind of beneficial information that, hey, the public library has a copy of this book that you just found. You can request it, you can get it now. But this, you won't get for free. This will take some degree of organization and effort. So this is the first opportunity I wanted to share today. I'll have 2 more later on. But let's go back to Google Scholars. So Google Scholars, if I look for African libraries, will give you, so this is a good place to send your patrons initially, especially if you can connect it to your own resources or through databases that you have already secured for them. There are a few important resources to look for here. You can customize the time range here, so you can look for things that were published maybe between 2000 and 2010 only if time matters for your research. Alert is very interesting. If you are dealing with something that is, if the research is on a field that is kind of very, where there are recent happenings involved, or if you know that there is a conference coming up and you want to see if any new publications are going to come from it, or really if it's just something that you will be working on in the long term, creating an alert is very helpful because it will allow you to just set your emails, put in a search, and whenever there is a new result that you did not see the first time, you will get notification of it. So this will let you know when new publications come out, which can be a very powerful tool. There are many more. You can look at the advanced search option here. So you can look for, you can try and avoid some specific words. You can look for particular authors, etc., etc. But on this note, I think this is the most I wanna spend on Google Scholars. Okay, so please, if you have questions, post them. We'll come back to them afterwards. But the big takeaways is try to get your patrons away from just basic Google Scholar. They can create bibliographies very easily, either through the citation functionality here, or by storing their own information and creating their own kind of mini library of references. And finally, there's a lot of potential to connect your own resources to this so that they're discoverable through here. And I'll share in the slides for you later on some guides I found on how to best use the tool and how to set up these connections. Okay. Okay, how am I doing on time? Okay, I need to speed things up a little bit. So most of our patrons will begin in Google, and hopefully we can steer them towards Google Scholar, and hopefully we can integrate our own library search. After Google, they'll probably stumble upon Wikipedia. So I wanted to take a moment. Someone mentioned Wikipedia earlier. Again, very good guess. But I do want to take a few minutes to talk about it because I just think it is too big to ignore. And once again, we have a lot of potential there. So what is Wikipedia? Wikipedia is, first of all, open source. So open source is a term that I will mention a couple times. And the idea with open source is that all the software for Wikipedia is freely available. This is like if Toyota released a new car, but also with it released all the plans for the car and just told you, you will probably want to buy this car. But if you're able to just build it yourself, we're going to tell you exactly how to do it, which is very interesting. So ultimately what that means is that you're able, if you want to create a basic encyclopedia online, you don't have to build the software from scratch. It already exists. If you have some computer science students in your institution that want to find a project, or if you have a strong IT team already, it should be fairly straightforward for them to make a basic version of it run. So I think that's already a great contribution they've made to everyone. It contains a lot of articles. So they're getting close to 6 million in English. They have over 2 million in French. 1 million in Portuguese. Arabic, I think, is around 250,000. When we start looking at more local languages across the continent, the number is much, much, much smaller. So I think there is a lot of potential there to localize the knowledge, and I will talk a little bit about that. But the elephant in the room, really, and one of the issues around Wikipedia is that ultimately it relies on community-curated content. You're not necessarily reading a paper by a researcher. You don't know who writes the content on Wikipedia at the end of the day. It can be an expert in the field, a voice to really listen to, or it can be someone who decided to write. So it's always something that one should take with a grain of salt, and hopefully none of this is news to any of us. But still, it has a lot of value for us in research. Part of it is also because it is more than just the encyclopedia. There is a lot of other kind of wiki tools that they've created. The wiki books, in particular, is something that can be very interesting to perhaps some of the smaller libraries that don't have a lot of resources. You can find open source books. So these are books that people have uploaded, that the authors have uploaded and shared on Wikipedia, but allowing other people to make edits. And obviously not anyone can come and change things. Everything goes through several phases of review, but basically the book is always evolving with insight from everyone. So that can be very interesting. Wikicommons has a lot of really usable pictures, audios, videos that can be useful resources for you and your patrons. So those are just some examples. Anyone who's into biology and kind of scientific libraries, there are some interesting databases here, even like a wiki of species and the tree of life, which can be interesting. So let's spend some time on Wikipedia. Give me 1 second. All right, so let's go on Wikipedia. So it will typically try and send you to a particular language. There are a lot of languages supported, but not all of them will give you the same mileage. But if we look at African libraries, let's see what we find. I'm not sure exactly what we'll find. Okay, well, we have a few things popping up. So we have the National Library of South Africa popping up first. We have some general history of libraries, but let's spend some time on perhaps the National Library of South Africa's page. So everyone has been on Wikipedia. Hopefully none of this is particularly new, but when it comes to stirring your patrons on how to best use it, I think the key takeaway here is that there are 2 things you should watch out for on any page. First, pretty much just always, I mean, it's a good place to, oh, people can't see the slides, but is my screen shared? Are you able to see the screen? Let's see. Is my screen shared? Okay, sorry about that. Hopefully this works, chat. Okay, cool. All right, sorry about this. Sorry about this. I'm new to Zoom, and please let's not make joke about the computer science teacher who doesn't know his way around technology. I hear them often enough. But yeah, hopefully the rest goes smoothly. So I was spending a little bit of time on Wikipedia, and the idea here is how to stir our patrons around their usage of the tool. So if you just want to learn a few things about a particular concept, this is not a bad place to start at all. But 2 things that hopefully you can help your patrons get into the habit of is, first, after you read, scroll down, get a sense of the references. Nothing should be getting published on Wikipedia if it does not have a strong set of references backing up the claims. So the idea is that it is community content, so you can never guarantee it, but people are working really hard, volunteering a lot of their time to make sure that the content that we put out on Wikipedia is sound and solid. So there is a degree of peer review to this. So at least the references can be something that is worth following up on. The other thing about it is that, like I said, it's community content, which often means that people disagree on it. Clicking here next to article, you'll have this talk link. This will show you the ongoing conversation about a particular document. So here we see that there does not seem to be any particularly contentious kind of back and forth. We just see that someone added a little bit of information at some point. if you went to say the Wikipedia page for Morocco, my country, again, it's a great page. You can learn a lot of things about the country here. But if you go to the talk section, you'll see that there is a review of the page by curators, and that a lot of people are making suggestions on things that should be removed, things that are missing, things that might be missing a citation, etc., etc. So this helps you get a sense of how much weight should you give the information you read here. So I don't believe that we should be pushing patrons and people who are doing research, especially if they're beginners, away from Wikipedia, but just hopefully make sure that they're safeguarding themselves from the trap they can fall into, and making sure that they engage with it correctly. And for me, that means leverage the references that already exist and make sure to spend some time on the talk pages. So again, you can just quickly shift from the article link here to the talk link to see what are people saying about this page, what modifications do they want to make, what are the contentious points there, okay? Again, if we have some non-English speakers or non-primarily English speaker people in the room, and obviously our continent has a wealth of languages, it's very easy to switch. So if you want to see the Arabic version of it, there's a language option to the left that will immediately switch it. So this is not translating the content. This is work by Arabic speakers that have shared information about this particular topic. There is a Kenya-Rwanda version, currently based in Rwanda, which is why I'm glad for it. You can see it's a lot lighter. And that's kind of my second opportunity that I want to share with you all. When you see people that are doing important research, especially if it's something that is very relevant to our continent, to our context, a lot of that information isn't really accessible to someone who doesn't speak English primarily, but then French, Portuguese, Arabic, some of the other kind of big languages on the continent, you can find things there, but it's not very reliable. It has become easier than ever to actually contribute to Wikipedia. That's the powerful thing there. So I encourage you all to actually create content here and encourage their patrons, their peers, the academics that are in your various organizations. Put some of this stuff here. So if you don't have an account, it's very easy. It's a very simple thing to create. I mean, I'm sure many people have done this before, so I'm just gonna call myself, no, sorry. Let me not put my password live here. I think I've created an account earlier. Let's see. So Wikipedia was notorious. Okay, so Wikipedia is notorious for historically having been very difficult to use. It has become a lot simpler. So I'm receiving a few messages. So I'm losing my my train of thought a little bit. But I will share information on the slides, but you can very easily create a new draft for a page. So I'm going to create a draft for the organization. And hopefully someone can pick this up and run with it, because you have a great website for the organization, but there isn't currently a Wikipedia page for your organization. So you can do this by going for so introduction, and I could perhaps just paste the introduction from the website for now. Obviously, we might want some more information over time. Now, obviously, all of this should be cited, so I'm going to refer to the official website. And yeah, now we have a citation for this, and we can publish this. Now, I've done this as a draft, so this will ultimately, I've done this as a draft, which means that it's not going to be put in front of the eyes of anyone until it is ready. But this was just my hope of demonstrating just how simple it has become to do this. There is a mobile application for it as well. So definitely something that I hope people, that we can encourage the community to do. I think I'm running low on time, so I'm going to speed things up as I move to other applications, okay? But these are the two big applications kind of for entry-level research that I wanted to mention. Next up, again, the slides will be shared with more information. I wanted to talk a little bit about e-readers. I'll do this somewhat quickly. I have found two e-reader applications. So these are applications that will allow your user to consume, these are applications that will allow your user to read ebooks, PDFs, etc., etc. And for me, there are kind of two winners here. Amazon Kindle probably is still the best one out there. So this is free for Android, iOS, for computers. It is connected to the Amazon store if people want to buy books through it. That is an option. In particular, it has good functionality for text-to-speech. For anyone who has eyesight issues, you can just have it read the book to you. You can very much kind of configure the speed of that as well, so it's quite neat. For the more studious people, you can annotate and take notes, put labels, bookmark various spots of various books, which is pretty important. The other one that is a lot less known that I stumbled upon in my research that I would heavily recommend is Freda. Now, Freda has been a little bit challenging to set up. It is not, so there is an application, a mobile application that's available pretty much everywhere, but I've had difficulties getting it to work on my computer, and it seems like it doesn't work everywhere, so be careful with using it. But the powerful thing about it is that it is a sister project to Project Gutenberg. So if people are not familiar with Project Gutenberg, it is, I'll just show it. It is a database of free books. It has 58,000 books to date, and it's really a useful resource. Now, not as much on the academic front as many of you might wish for, but it's still something that can be beneficial for smaller libraries to be aware of. You can refer your patrons to content from it. And what's nice about Freda is that it is automatically connected to Project Gutenberg. So you download the application, you have access to 58,000 books already, which is quite great. It also shares a lot of the key, I think, studying and accessibility features, in my opinion. Freda will also read you the books if you have issues with your eyesight, and will allow for annotation. And obviously, both of these are free applications. Now, in this space of e-readers, I have found another opportunity, potentially, for the group. I stumbled upon this application called Libby, and I'll share the link for it. So Libby is a project that is now only operational in the US, but it comes from the partnership between this e-reader application and public libraries in the United States. And basically, they allow patrons, members of libraries, to just borrow content from the libraries through the application immediately. So if the library you're a part of has access to a particular book or to a particular article or audiobook in a digital format, you go to this app, you immediately get access to it as well. I have not found any other example of an e-reader that effectively allows you to check out a resource from the library. And here, obviously, that's something that you might be aware of. So I'll be happy to learn from you on this front. But for e-readers, it's very much, if you give something to someone, that's it, they have it forever. But if you are in a situation where you are more limited in your resources and you want to actually loan them digital materials, this is the only example I have found to date. And again, this is an opportunity that will require some degree of collaboration and partnership with other institutions. But it's an opportunity that I wanted to share with the group. Okay, so far we've seen two things for research, Wikipedia and Google Scholars, and we've done a very quick run through of e-readers. Really, I have not found any reason to recommend any application besides these two for being available kind of on all platforms and really having kind of accessibility functionality that makes it very, very powerful. Now, I want to talk a little bit about library management. This is potentially, for some people, a more exciting topic. For some people, perhaps a more boring topic. But there are a lot of moving pieces to a library. There is a lot to do. Now, there are a few things I want to explore before I talk about the app I want to introduce you to, Zoho Creator. First is that your scale ultimately dictates everything. So in our case, in our university, we have a very small physical library. We have a lot of resources available for students online through things like EBSCO, but the physical library is very small. Nevertheless, it's a pain to manage everything. But I think the solution we went for ultimately is one of the best ones we could have in our context, which is basically that we had a bunch of computer science students build an application for it. So they've built a small application that allows us to scan the books. It also allows students to check out and return books using the cards, the student IDs that they have. It took the students a couple of weeks to create. It was free for us. It gave them, or very cheap, sorry, I'm not sure about the details. It gave them a great project to keep, but it also allows the library to run smoothly. So ultimately, that's something that I would encourage everyone to do. Look at the talent already available through your universities and institutions. I'm sure there will be a lot of folks and students who are eager for a project to add to their CV and to their portfolio. And if you're in the very small range, then that is probably the approach I would recommend the most, at least like from a software engineering background. If you're in the very large scale, I think you probably already have a solution for this. So this is going to be a suggestion really for people kind of in the middle who may have automated some aspects of it, but still have some gaps. And I want to introduce Zoho Creator. Zoho Creator is a really cool application that allows you to create business applications. Let me show you an example. So I created an account, and initially you have nothing, you have no application. But in just a few clicks, we are going to get a basic library management application up and running. So once you create an account in Zoho Creator, you have access to a lot of things, but in particular, it already has functionality for library management. So installing this will take a few moments. I probably should have done this before the call, apologies. Okay, this is taking a little bit longer, so let me try and do something else in the meantime. So effectively what this allows you to do is define the details of your library. So if you have a database, you can upload it here. You can share the various categories you cater for, the various kind of resources people can check out, how many copy of each you have. And this application comes in two parts. It has a section for you as the administrator to manage how the library should run, but also a section for the users to interact with it. And I will show examples of both. So we just created, a library management system. At the beginning, it is pretty much empty, but as you go through settings, you can start filling it, making it more alive. So if you go say so important things to bear in mind are probably resource types and resource categories initially. So here, for example, we'll add a few types of things one could check out from the library. So you could check out books. You could check out, let's add another one. You could check out journals. Perhaps you have kind of a media section that would allow people to check out DVDs, right? Now, you might be looking at this and thinking, well, I'm not going to spend years trying to type all of this. Well, you do have the option to import the data. So if you already have some kind of a spreadsheet or one of many types of files that you use to keep track of what you have in your inventory, its categories, what type of resources they are, you can very quickly just upload them in bulk. But here, let's say as a category, I'm going to put computer science as a field. Similarly, you can add resources to your library. So this will first prompt you to give some information about the library itself. I'm just going to put some incorrect information here. Okay, but let me just skip through this part. But here you can add your resources. Similarly, if you have that in a spreadsheet and already existing database, that will be easily uploadable. But the powerful part comes from the fact that you can invite patrons. You can provide the resource for patrons to check this out, and they will be able to see your inventory, request for things to be prepared for them. You can set up a line for, well, if someone has already checked out the book, someone can be next and next and next, etc., kind of smoothing the experience of your patrons. What's particularly powerful about this tool, though, is that this can also help with general management. You can use this to create a basic library management that keeps track of your inventory and who's checking out books and when they come back. But this could also be the tool for your employee management and figuring out things related to hiring or onboarding new employees, who's working when, in what shift. So this comes with a lot of different applications that you can very easily create and get to talk to each other. It will automatically, you can invite people to use it. There are apps that join this, so you can create this from your phone or from your tablet. Users can consume this from the phone or the tablet. So it's all in all a very, very powerful tool. Ultimately, if you use it seriously, if you want to put a lot of applications, if you want to have a lot of users on this, this is not a completely free tool. So you will have ultimately to pay for this. From my estimates, it seems to be fairly affordable. I will share pricing information in the slides once you get them at the end. Okay? So moving on very swiftly, I'm trying to be conscious of time. In my last 10 minutes, I want to kind of bring you to my world a little bit, the world of programming. And before people start running away from the call, let me disclaim that this will be a very simple, this is very simple stuff to do. So, and in particular, in this final portion, I want you to keep this in mind as you move to tomorrow's presentation, where my colleague Ruti is going to tell you about a lot of general productivity software and tools that are very powerful in their own right. But hopefully with this, I will show you how to make them powerful working together. So a lot of programming is ultimately, just connecting various existing tools together. And here I can recommend a lot of tools, IFTT, Zapier, Automate.io, that will do this for you. So without further ado, let me just show an example. Sorry, give me 1 second. So this is Automate.io. And what Automate.io lets you do is create a very simple automated software that will do things that can be helpful for you. So I have a particular workflow that I want to use. So I use this tool called Trello to keep track of projects, right? So I have a project I'm currently working on, and I have a set of tasks, and I keep track of what task I'm working on right now, which one I should work on next. One thing I really want to do just to improve my own productivity is keep track of just how much time did this take me? How long from the moment I said I was doing something to the moment I took it and moved it to done? How much time did that take? Now, this is not something that this tool on its own can do for me. But thanks to this, I was able to get that particular functionality. So here, what I do, what you can do with Automate is you can link it to various applications. So I've connected it to Trello and to a Google spreadsheet. And we'll talk about Google Sheets a lot tomorrow. And what I'm saying here is that, so all these applications will essentially work the same way. You pick a particular tool, in this case I picked Trello, and you decide on a trigger. So I said, whenever a card is moved to a list, whenever I say that, so on, sorry, give me 1 second. Yeah, okay. So you connect it to your list. So I say, I have this board that I use to keep track of my work. I have this particular list that keeps track of the work that I'm currently doing. So whenever I move something to this list, I want something to happen on a Google spreadsheet. And it seems like this thing should have no connection whatsoever, but this tool will allow you to make them talk to each other. So on Google Sheets, what I've created is, I've created a spreadsheet called Project Tracker. And whenever I say that I'm doing something, it will keep track. It will just add a row to that spreadsheet that says, this task, I start working on it at this particular moment in time. And I could probably do a quick live demo of this if you just give me a moment to set it up. Let me open the project tracker. So this is my very simple spreadsheet. And you should see here that if I go to my project and say that right now, one thing I'm doing is I'm presenting for the AfLIA webinar. The moment I move this card to the doing list, in a few moments, actually, not even a few moments, this magically just appeared on here and was added to the spreadsheet. I actually have another one because, again, for me, the purpose is to check how long it takes me to do things. So the moment I move it to done, it will, again, in a few moments, update this and track the time when the task got done. And that allows me to just do some calculations and figure out how long it takes me to do things. So this is just one example of something you can do with it. But the list of automations is huge. So there are a lot of applications you can connect. You could automate, for example, if someone tweets your library or sends you something on your Facebook group, asking you for whether or not you have a particular book. And if you have the information on some kind of spreadsheet, you could automatically respond to that query. You can just select that, say, Twitter is your trigger. It will ask you to log into your Twitter, give it authorization, right? But you could make it so that someone doing something on Twitter makes you go look for information on a Google Sheet and then send them a tweet back. So this basically allows you to become a strong programmer without ever learning how to do any programming. So something that is very, very powerful. There is a lot of documentation on how to use it. And I hope that this is something you can already see applications for, and something that tomorrow when my colleague Ruti shows you a lot of these productivity tools, you can also now imagine ways that you can get them to talk to each other. At this point, I've been talking for a long time, and I hope that we can take some time for
Okay, Mehdi, there are a few questions here. I'll just ask, and then you can come in and then give answers to them. So please just unmute yourself and then. Yeah. So the first
sorry,
question,
I don't have the ability to unmute myself,
okay,
but hopefully we can take questions now. Yes.
Great. The first question, the one Oluwatoyin is asking how I could not understand the aspect of linking Google with library resources. Can the instructor just explain further? I think it's in relation to linking your Google with library resources. If you can just take a bite of that before.
Of course. Thanks a lot for the question. So from my research, there are two different ways one can link this, and I will share. So the page that you're looking at that will be included in the slides, and this is the documentation I've found about this. So there are two ways of doing this. One is if you're already using a provider like EBSCO or Exlibris, if your library is using them, paying for their ability, they as a service, they provide you for a connection a connection to Google Scholar. Now, what you'll have to do is they're going to give you some kind of a registration form. You're going to have to work with your IT department to make sure that anyone who's connected from your library Wi-Fi, from your library network, EBSCO can identify. Once you have that, if someone uses Google Scholars on that network and they find a particular resource that is available through the provider that is facilitating this for you, then they will have access to a link to just get the resources right then and there. So that's one first way of linking this, by leveraging providers that you may be already paying for. So this is something anyone who's already paying for something like this should probably make sure to benefit from. Okay. The other method is a lot more involved. The other method involves opening your own catalog to Google Scholars. Now, this one will require more. This one will require more engineering effort on your end, more organization, and you can probably get a lot of support from Google Scholar engineers and their team because they've worked with other organizations on that before. But yeah, those are the two methods. You can either leverage a provider you already use, and this one should be pretty painless, pretty quick. The one where you can, and then there's a more involved version of building up your own catalog and sharing that with Google Scholars directly. And this one will be a non-trivial kind of IT investment. I hope that helps clarify things.
Oh, I hope it does. There's quite a lot of questions regarding how to connect the libraries with Google Scholar. Is there anything, any instruction, a little on instruction for everybody on how to do it?
So I have not found particularly strong resources besides this particular link. Okay. And kind of the various policies and questions linked here. This is just the overview. So there is more material here for people to explore. But I really think that so again, if you're already a paid customer of these things, you should get it pretty much for free. Contact them directly for information. If we want to go for the more in-depth catalog, that is probably something that as an association, as a group, you guys need to explore together, because it's not an easy kind of, send a couple emails, fill a couple forms, and then a few days later you have it. This one takes a lot more IT effort. But I am going to kind of improve the slides based on this conversation before sharing them. And if I do find more rigorous instructions, very happy to share that. Okay,
the next question is about Wikipedia.
Yes.
The concern is that it's said to be very weak. There is no peer review. Okay, even if there is peer review, a lot of universities tend to discourage their students from using Wikipedia. So the question is, why, despite its perceived weakness, should we still continue to encourage our students to use it? I know also in my university, we discourage students to use Wikipedia. As a professor, please share some light on that.
Oh, absolutely. So first of all, fully agree. No one should be citing Wikipedia directly in any work that they do. It is not peer reviewed. It is more often than not up to the standards, right? On the other hand, and this is personal opinion, my opinion is that doesn't mean we should diabolize it and kind of push students completely away from it. We should use it for what it is good at. And I think it is good for early discovery. If you see that someone is in very early stages of research, right? If someone is like, hey, I've already written like 3 papers on malaria treatments, and now I'm trying to get into something more specific, they've obviously read a lot of things before. They should probably not spend any moment on Wikipedia. But if you have someone who's in the very early stages, I think it helps kind of ramp up the students' vocabulary, the students' awareness. But again, the recommendation here is that maybe spend a few minutes there. Okay. But really just use it as a first point to get more in-depth references, see what the people on Wikipedia are citing, and use that as a starting point on your circulation desk, on Google Scholars, on your more thorough resources. But often Wikipedia is a good place to go from to discover kind of the technical level of things. So like there are layman terms for concepts and there are the technical proper terms for concepts. And if you don't have exposure to those, that can make your more academic research a lot harder. People in academia will be talking about a specific concept using a vocabulary that you're not aware of. And I found historically Wikipedia to be a good place for students to discover this, but then they should move on from it very quickly.
Okay, there's a couple of questions also on Wikipedia. Mostly
Yes.
the gist of it is, how do people publish in Wikipedia? So I think there's about 2 questions on that. And then someone
Sure.
says, could you please retake how to publish on Wikipedia?
Sure. Sorry, my demo was not as smooth as I had practiced it. I was rushing. But I'll share a lot of documentation, a lot of guides for this. Basically, the way it works is that Wikipedia works with what we call namespaces. So there are some areas of Wikipedia that people can search for and see, and some areas are completely hidden. So typically, what you would do is do something similar to what I was showing earlier, and perhaps, yeah, just create a draft. So Wikipedia allows you to create a draft of a particular document. It will not be visible to anyone unless you show it to them. So people will not find it in search. They will not find it via Google. It's just hidden. But here you can work on the content, right? So you can start building up the article that you're creating in whatever language you deem fit, add your sources. But at some point you will have a button there. You have an option that tells you to put it up for review. At which point people from the community, people who've been, so you can tag it, say, okay, maybe this is a geography article, this is a medicine article or something like that. Other members of the community who've made edits in the past and given feedback in the past will get notified of this, and they can take a look at what you've done. So there is a degree of built-in peer review, but obviously it is not as reliable as what formal journals will do. But that's really it. Build up an article, send it up for review, wait for a couple of days for people to give feedback, incorporate the feedback. At some point there, when the community, whoever is active in that specific community, whoever is active in that specific community signs off on it, then it becomes accessible to everyone. Does that make sense?
Okay. Hopefully it will make sense to the people. Okay, we have also a solution for the people that don't know how to link their catalogs and their universities to Google Scholar. As AfLIA will look at how this can be done, and then we will share the information on top of what you will be sharing with the slides. So please know that we will investigate that. I know a lot of the South African universities have Google Scholars within their databases already. So the students, when they search, regardless where they search, even if you search from just Google, you will be linked back into your university's databases. So yeah, we will share that with everybody who will be struggling with that. Okay, the next question, I think it's about the Zoho creation.
Sure.
There's quite a few questions on that. The first one is, how does it work with other, is it an open source? That's the first question. Can I do 2 questions? Is it open source? Does it work? How does it integrate with other open source library systems like Koha or any other library system?
So this particular one is not open source. So it is not open source, meaning that you'll probably have some difficulty getting it to talk with something that you already have. I think the reason why I chose to bring it up is because it allows you in just a few clicks to set up some basic degree of library management, but also a lot of other administrative tasks that, like, you know, keeping track of general inventory, things moving back and forth, HR related things, about kind of employees and managing their comings and goings. So it seems to be a good kind of one-stop shop for general administration. I would say if you already have a library management system that you're happy with, it's probably not worth looking into Zoho for that. although you might want to look at it for other aspects, other things that you have to administer within your organization, beyond just my inventory of books, who's taking the books, where are they going, categorizing all of that.
Okay. Yeah. All right. The other question is how can one have access to the Zoho creation as a librarian?
As a librarian?
Yeah, if you want it for your library, I think.
Yeah, so you just go to zohocreator.com. You go to zohocreator.com, you create an account for yourself, and it will, sorry, give me just a second. Let me find I lost the link for it. Yeah, so once you access Zoho Creator, that's it. You can create new applications with it. One of them, so whenever you want to create a new application, you'll be shown a big list of things that they provide. One of them is a basic, already built library manager. So.
Okay. The other question is that is there a good support system for the librarians? Like, is there someone who, once you've created it, is there anyone that can support it? And you said something about payment. I think everybody wants to know if you just said you go to their website, you download and you click and you have a, who do you pay? How do you pay? You know, online payments in Africa is problematic.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point. So perhaps this may not have been the most appropriate. Let me see if I can pull up the pricing. Zoho Creator pricing. I'll have the link to that in the slides. Okay. So you can try it for free for a while just to get a sense of what you want. But they charge, and I have no idea what people's budgets look like, but for their basic support, they seem to charge $10 per user per month. My understanding of this is that these are the administrators, and you can allow multiple kind of users, say patrons, to use it, I think, for free. That is what I got from their documentation, but I'll double check that and share back through the slides. But this allows for multiple applications. So at this price, you could be managing your library, your HR, your logistics around kind of shipping and bringing in new books as 3 different applications all through this. And you can have like several thousand records across the board.
Okay, I have a,
goes up. Yes.
All right. I have a question here. I don't understand it. We've been chatting with the owner on the side. I would appreciate a copy of your slides. Okay, that we have answered. What is your take on librarians and the 4IR? Should they even be moved by this revolution, or are there certain aspects that they can prioritize, foregoing others? And if so, which are those?
So fourth IR, I think here refers to the fourth industrial revolution, which is something that a lot of people are talking a lot about these days, about how with especially the advent of artificial intelligence, there are a lot of fields that are being deeply transformed by it. In the context of libraries, I feel like obviously there's a lot of potential for automation. I mean, for a long time, like people have been spending more time searching for things online rather than you know, going into the stacks, going into this building full of books and trying to find one book in the middle of that. I think there needs to be first a lot of awareness about what the new technologies that are coming about can and can't do. I think there is a lot of buzz very often that, oh, now every problem is solved and everything is easy, click here, and there's some AI that's going to give you the solution. That is very often not the case. And in the cases where it has been done, it's not often very cheap and accessible to the vast majority of people. So I think here, the big things to leverage is that, one, tech talent is more accessible than ever. It is still hard to get it, to get good talent, especially in our context around the continent. But really leverage this. If you don't have a strong IT team, that is something to build up. And start building a rapport with them. Like young computer scientists today have had exposure to a lot of problem-solving solutions. They have had and they can solve problems you may not necessarily know you have. But that means there needs to be a dialogue there. So be aware of your limitations and find people that you can share that with, that are invested in this project as well. And maybe this is getting kind of away from the technical side of things, but it's really like, practically, this is how you do it. Like, you've been in this field for a long time. You know the things that work well, you know the things that you wish could be a lot better. Find yourself a young, promising software engineer and talk to them about this. And you will see that they can work some very interesting things. I'll just leave it at this. If people want to get into some specifics of many aspects of the fourth IR, I'm happy to stay on the chat for a little bit longer with this. But I would say, like, the role of the librarians as people who can guide a researcher and show them how it's done and steer them towards the best possible resources and make sure that we keep giving them more and more resources over time is actually something that I don't see AI being able to replace for quite a few years, couple decades really, because it might be very good at letting you search quickly through a big database, and that's a great thing. We don't want to like manually be sifting through pages of things or walking through a building for it. But showing someone how to approach research on a topic is something that is incredibly hard for an artificial agent to do today. So we need you guys.
Okay, there's actually a comment on that. It says, great presentation, but just to observe that becoming a programmer is not as easy as you mentioned. For some of us, it's easier because we had background in computer science and IT. Anyway, that was just a comment. Yeah. There were some comments also on Kindle, on the Kindle and the e-readers.
Sure.
I think we had a conversation about this yesterday. There's people who are saying they like to use Kindle and they use, there's quite a few libraries that are already using Kindle in their libraries. And what I just want to add, you don't have to buy the device. You can actually download the Kindle on any of the smartphones you have, on any computer or any device that you have access to. So it's not necessary for you to, okay, probably Amazon will kill me for this. You don't have to buy the actual device. You can just download the software and use it. So there are some people who are using it as for people that can't, who can't hear properly, or who are blind, and they use the functionality that reads to their users. So that was another comment. Okay. Any more questions? Whose question have I left out? I'm trying to go through the questions. Can somebody okay, what I also want to share with you is that we can continue talking about all the apps that we are using, the software that we are using on Twitter, on AfLIA Twitter, on Facebook. We have an academic library mailing list which is not very active. I'm upset. Please go join the group so that we have conversations like this. We continue sharing and talking offline, and we go on Facebook and talk and discuss. I know we will put you there, Mehdi, if you don't mind.
Of course.
Yeah, and then you can share some information. If we have questions that we can't answer, then you should be our resource person who will answer our question.
Sorry.
I've just committed you, sorry.
Yeah, no, of course.
Okay. Any more questions? I haven't picked up any questions from the chat because I can see some people are putting their questions on the chat facility. I'm quickly going to, oh, okay, there's someone who's asked, can the MAC records that are used for cataloging books be used in the Zoho Creator?
The what, sorry?
The MAC records, I think MAC is the standard that the librarians use to, it's a format that they use to catalog books in the libraries. So they just wanted to know, can they download the MAC records into their Zoho?
As long as the MAC records can be turned into a CSV, like a file that is just comma separated values, so each line has some information, it's placed by commas, then you should be able to then import it into that other tool. So they don't talk to each other directly, but you can download the data from one, upload it to the other, and that should help you connect, kind of bridge the gap between the two.
Okay, someone is asking, how do you ensure privacy for information on the Zoho? I see most of the information is pretty much private. Do you get that?
That is a very important question. I believe that ultimately all the information you put in there will be stored by, like, in Zoho's own databases, which means you don't have necessarily a lot of control of it, but it's kind of their responsibility to keep it private and secure and make sure that you and your users get to see the right things, no one else gets to access that. That being said, ultimately it ends up depending on how much trust you want to put into a particular business. Ultimately, the most trust you will always have is if you store the data in your own database that your own IT team is responsible for, et cetera, et cetera. I've done some research about the company. I haven't seen anything to suggest that they've had some major breach of data or data leak or something of the sort. But obviously something to be aware of whenever you rely on some other company to store your data. It's something that is something to pay attention to.
Can the patrons access the Zoho, or is it only a back-end system? Someone is asking. Can I also follow up with that? Someone also wants to know, can they put their books, their library resources on it?
So let me answer the library part first, right? Mm-hmm. So the library part, yes. So as long as you have kind of a spreadsheet that has that information, you should be able to upload it and get a list of all your categories, all your books, et cetera, onto the library management system. For the question about the backend and front end and kind of the patron side and the admin side, yes. So once you create it as an admin, you can invite users to it. The mobile applications and the web applications for this come in two flavors, depending on whether or not you're an administrator or patron. Patrons will never see the administration stuff, but they will be able to see all the books you've uploaded. They'll be able to request for a particular book. You'll be able to validate, approve, or disapprove a particular request. You'll be able to keep track of who has a book for how long, et cetera, So it does split it into two. You create the backend, but ultimately it spawns two applications. One that lets you manage that backend and one that lets users interact with it. And this works both like online and through mobile applications as well.
Okay. There's another question on the Zoho. See, everybody is very interested in it. Is there relations between Z39 and the Zoho creator?
I'm not sure what Z39 is, so I don't think I can answer that question right now, but I will follow up on this. Do a little look it up and see if I find a connection. But I don't know what Z39 is. Sorry, I can't help with this one.
Okay, yeah, I see the person asked it twice because we haven't answered it.
Of course.
Okay, you will get your answer later. Okay, there's another comment that we should also look at apps like Zotero, Mendeley tomorrow, yes, because it has to do with research and literature management. Can I answer that for you? We looked at quite a lot of apps. There is a lot of apps that can be used by librarians, but we had to group them so that we don't go all over the place. We talk about this and that, and the time also didn't permit. So I'm committing AfLIA again. We will continue looking at the apps that are useful, because I personally am very interested in the research apps like those Zoteros and Mendeley and others. So we will continue. It's a continuing conversation. So David, I hope we've answered your question. I'm not sure if it will come up tomorrow. So if it comes up, that would be good. But we will look at other apps. I said also, as we are talking, you can share the links that you think are useful. I see there's a link that has been shared about the African Digital Library Network, that it's free books that are accessible to all the African countries, and you can also add your collection to it. I'm trying to go through this. Please arrange a presentation on reference and management apps. Yes, we will. It looks like we will be dealing with apps quite a lot. So everybody wants loads of apps, and everybody thinks this was a very wonderful and great presentation. We really thank you for this. You were able to come to our level. You know, we thought you are taking, so sometimes you take a stop above us, but you were able to talk to us as librarians, and we understand what you were talking about.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Everyone. Any more questions? How long do we have now? I'm trying to go up and see if I've missed any questions. If I've missed your question, please quickly go into the answer and questions, and then type it in quickly, then I'll go, because I'm now trying to look at the chats if we have missed anything out, because most of them were just comments. Right.
I think the last one, I'm seeing the last one about kind of the last demo I did with the kind of project tracker. I will add this to the slide as well, just kind of as a bonus extra application to talk about. I'll show a detailed tutorial on how I was able to connect these two applications. So hopefully that's taken care of.
We can pick up some that you want to comment on while I'm still going. Oh, there's a question. Can we follow you on Facebook and LinkedIn?
Oh, who, me? I'm flattered.
Okay.
Sure, yes, LinkedIn would be great. I'm not very active on Twitter, but people can find me on Twitter using my name as well. LinkedIn is probably the best way to contact me. And I am very excited on like advising people that are embarking on tech projects if they don't have the background. So if anyone wants to chat about ways of adopting new technologies into your work, I'm very happy to support with this.
Okay, that's good. Okay, I'm just reminding everybody, while we haven't lost some of you, this is a 2-day webinar. We are starting tomorrow again, 2 o'clock. Please be there. We will be looking at more apps, and then please don't forget to add what you do with the apps that you use at your institution, so that we can share. You can just put them up on the chat, and anything that you would like us to look at going forward. Thank you. Let me see. Any more questions?
Sadly, I think at this point I do have to
Leave
run.
us.
So
Okay.
hopefully, if there are any more questions that come tomorrow that you think I'll be a good fit to answer, Nthabi, I'm sure you can forward them to me. I'll try and get them to the people who need them. Otherwise, on LinkedIn or via email, I can support. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay, and I think there's people who still want how to do presentations on Zoom. Hopefully we will get to that. Yeah. So just put the questions, and then tomorrow we'll see which ones we can pick up, and then we can answer them as we go. Thank you very much. It was very interesting.